In 1858, is my mic on? Oh, yeah. In 1858, Christine Phillips got married to a man named Mr. A.M. Campbell. Christine had emigrated from Scotland when she was a little girl, and when she got married, she and her new husband moved out to the prairie town of Salina, Kansas, a new town on the frontier. And there, for many years, she was the only white woman. Now, from our American history, we all know that that period in our history was filled with a lot of strife. There was fear and division and distrust and violence between the American government and the white settlers and the Native Americans. There was a culture of distrust and violence that this young bride stepped into. Yet she did not immerse herself in that world. She actually said that if it wasn't for the friendship of 3 Native American women, she doesn't know how she would have survived those early days. Those early days in which she and her husband opened a trading post, and she was in charge of the trading post while he worked out on the land. And so the Native Americans would come in and become familiar faces. And the way she became friends with these 3 particular women is all around humor. So the story goes that she was in the trading post one day, and she could see these 3 women standing off to the side and sort of whispering together and pointing at her feet. At her little feet, peeking out from underneath the latest fashion of the time, which was great big hoop skirts. Great big hoop skirts. And so the most courageous of these 3 women came up to her and just lifted up the front little part of her dress, and she saw another petticoat. So she lifts up the next petticoat and, like, is incredulous, right? Looks up at the woman. There's yet another petticoat. And so the Native American woman just sort of gestures to Christine saying, can you just lift your skirts? We're curious, right? So with great good humor, Christine realizes that these women are just trying to figure out what shape is going on underneath these hoop skirts. Does this white woman have legs like theirs? Or is she just shaped this way? So Christine looks around the trading post, makes sure there's no men there, and goes, whoop! And there's her legs in her bloomers, and the Indian women start laughing hysterically. Tears are running down their faces, and Christine starts laughing hysterically, and tears are running down her face because they see their common humanity and the absurdity of those assumptions that they had about each other. And they become family from that moment forward. Now, our passage in John, which Charlie read so beautifully for us, is written in a time when there is similar strife and distrust between peoples. In this case, it's particularly written to people who are Jewish followers of Christ, who are feeling threatened by and distrustful of Jewish non-followers of Christ. And so the point of this passage is to re-emphasize Jesus' teaching that we are all one, regardless of the surface differences in the way we look or how we worship or who we love or the political party we deal with, that we're really truly all one because we are all a reflection of the divine. Every single human being in the world is a reflection of the divine. And because of that, we are all connected and we are all one. Now that's easy to say, but hard to live into. Because of these differences we all perceive, there's always this illusion of separation and an underlying fear and distrust of people that are different from us. And if we act on that fear and distrust, history shows that many tragedies ensue. So a couple of years pass, and Christine now has 3 children. The trading post is now the general store. The town has grown. And one day she's sitting at the desk at the front of her store doing her bookkeeping, and she looks up, and here, running across the dirt road toward her store, are 2 Native American men. And they are being pursued fast on their heels by several obviously intoxicated American soldiers. And her first impulse is just to bolt up from her desk, throw open the door of her store, allow the Native American men in, and then close it quickly and bolt the door to the soldiers on the outside. And the soldiers start pounding on the door and demanding that she send out these 2 Native American men. And she looks at these men and hears the violent pounding. And she doesn't open the door. Then the soldiers start threatening. They pull out their weapons. And they say that they are going to shoot through the door and through the windows until they hit these Native American men. And she looks down at her children on the floor, and she is frightened. She's full of fear, and she says, no, don't shoot. You could hit my children. And still, she doesn't send out the Native American men. And the soldiers now start pulling out their pistols and shooting it in the air and pounding on the door. And she looks at these men, and she makes a choice. She chooses not to send these men out to their doom. And so she reaches up above the door jamb, where in every prairie home and store, we all know what's kept there, right? It's the shotgun, up away from where the children can get to it. She takes down the gun. She moves toward the window. She loads the gun, and that mechanical click gets the soldiers' attention. They know that sound. And so she says to them, the first one of you to come through that door for these men, I will shoot. And she stands there, brave. And in her solidarity, unwavering solidarity with these Native American men, the soldiers disperse. After it's safe for the men to leave the general store, they look at her and they say, "No forget, white sister. No forget, white sister." They have become family. This culture of fear and distrust that comes from perceiving our differences as our first assumption about each other. No different than what Jesus experienced 2,000 years ago. No different from what Christine Campbell dealt with. No different than what we experience in places like Ferguson and Baltimore. It is that first assumption of differences that leads us to fear. I ask you to think about that when you hear the news and you struggle with what you hear. Where do you jump to first? Do you think these people are just like me, wanting love and connection, a good job, a place to raise their family? Do you go there first? I'm guessing maybe not always. And that's understandable. But that's not the way out of our culture of violence. The way out of that culture of violence that we all want that way out, that comes from the path that Jesus taught us. In every relationship that Jesus had, his first assumption is that he is connected to the other person. Connected to the Jew, connected to the Gentile, connected to the Samaritan, connected to the Roman guard, connected to the woman who's a prostitute, connected to the untouchable, the unhealthy, connected to the rich, connected to the poor. His first assumption every time, was that he was connected. And he lived out that path of connection for us to emulate. And if we follow that path laid out for us so clearly over and over by Jesus Christ, we will not be disappointed. We will not be disappointed. It is our way out of this illusion of separation. Christine Campbell was not disappointed. She was able to make connections with people in ways that were completely countercultural for her time. More years pass. Her 3 Native American friends come into the store. This time, she's in the back room. Things have changed. Her husband's in the front room. They come in, and they ask for white sister. So her husband goes in the back, says, "Your friends are here." So she comes out. And the boldest one of the three, the one that started lifting up her petticoats all those years ago, comes to her. And she explains that the next day, the three of them with their families are leaving. Now, whether they are leaving because they are being relocated by the American government or for some other reason, we don't know. We do know, though, that this boldest of the three reaches into the bosom of her dress and pulls out a little deerskin bag and takes a gift out of this bag. Reaches out for Christine's hand, looks her in the eye, and slips a simple gold ring onto her finger. A few minutes of eye contact. The hand is dropped, and the women walk away, never to be seen by Christine again. Yet the impact of their connection lingers for the rest of her life. She looks back at her life and talks to a granddaughter and says, "Of all the things I remember in my life that I am proud of, that I am blessed by, is that connection I had with those three Native American friends of mine, my sisters." And she says to her granddaughter, "No words can express what that little gold ring meant. The love and kindly feelings that was in each of these three Indian women has been a precious memory to me all my life long." And isn't that what we all want? We want that gold ring. That gold ring that signifies our unity with each other and with God and with all of creation and with the people in Ferguson and with the people in Baltimore and with the people across the ocean that are suffering from storms or from persecution. We want that gold ring, and we know how to get it. We get it by having our first assumption be our connection with each other. The first thing we look for in others is the presence of the divine. And we put fear aside, knowing that separation is merely an illusion. May each of you open your palm and find that gold ring in your hand. Amen.